All right, looks like we are live. There we are. All right. So what's going on, guys? I'm Brandon with the TRT community, host of All Things Testosterone. We've got Ian on board. Kevin's not here. He's probably still got the coronavirus.
Hello, Brandon.
We've got a couple of we've got a couple of TRT community members. We got Joel, Roger, and Chris. We wanted to, since we're all cooped up and bored out of our minds, we wanted to just kind of get together and see other people's faces and talk about maybe some of the struggles that we experienced or why we started TRT, and kind of give some advice on, Joel, you mentioned that you've been through several doctors, and kind of just explaining what you may face if you decide to go and get your levels tested, and what your doctor may tell you, and then kind of how you can kind of avoid some of those issues. So without any kind of delay, Joel, you want to kick us off and kind of get us going into your story?
Okay, thanks. I've been on TRT about 2.5 years. I was on the gel for 6 months, and after that, got on injections. And what got me, I guess, in this whole thing, I think it was probably I had a back injury about 9 years ago, shattered 2 vertebrae in my lower back. Turns out I have scoliosis, at the time until the injury, and because of that, I was avoiding pain pills. So I was on a lot of ibuprofen, which we know now, isn't exactly helpful for men's hormonal health. And I got to a point a couple of years ago where, I thought I had cancer. I thought I was dying. I had no energy. I had no gumption. Just fearful, like everything, all the low T side effects. And the weirdest thing was the mental fog. Like I knew there was something wrong with me, and but I couldn't actually do anything about it. I would kind of manage to barely get through work. And then, like in the evening, I could do like one thing. I could do like the dishes or take the trash out or put stuff in the washer and dryer and then sort it days later. But that was about it. I would just kind of crash and barely sleep, and that kept getting worse and worse and worse. I was really stressed with a bad job, and for a while I kept thinking it was probably just the stress from the job and just life problems and stuff. But I finally realized, okay, this isn't normal. I don't, like, I was in my mid-30s, and I just did not have a normal level of energy and just health. I gained a bunch of weight with the back injury anyway, and so I kind of attributed it to that for a while. It's like, well, I'm fat. I've gotten some weight on me, and but eventually I realized that this is not normal. Something's wrong with me. So I went to my doctor, and he did a bunch of tests, made sure I didn't have, I had a scan and made sure there was no cancer or tumors or anything anywhere. And it was like, oh no, like the doctor could not find anything wrong with me. And so I started just kind of researching on my own, like what is causing this. And I started reading stuff about men's hormonal health and testosterone levels. And so I actually had to approach my doctor about that and suggest we test my levels. And he was like, I appreciate his honesty, but the doctor I had at the time told me that he wasn't familiar with testosterone, wasn't very familiar with men's health needs as far as like hormones and things. But he said, yeah, let's give it a shot. Let's test it. And the results came back. I was in like the 90s, like 90 or 92 or something. Like it was, and I had no clue about the scale and all this stuff at the time. So I was like, is that good? And they're like, no, like, no, it's not. And so he was like, well, we can do the gel, but there's injections if you want. And I was like, I'm not ready for, the idea of an intramuscular injection, I was not prepared for. So I did the gel for the first 6 months, and it made me go from a empty battery to feeling like a half charged battery. So I could tell it was helping a little bit, but it just gave me a little bit of focus and energy, not enough, and started like where I was applying on my shoulders, like it was causing hair growth there. That was about all I was getting. It's like, okay, this is making me feel like a half charged Sasquatch. This is not what I need. And ended up going to a private clinic at one point where they taught me how to do the injection, but really it's just like they showed me how to inject once, and they said, okay, here's a prescription, and go home and get the, fill the prescription and do it yourself. So a week later, I'm in my bathroom at home with this needle, preparing to inject myself with it, and I was terrified. But I remember thinking, I just have to do this. I have to just get used to it. And I was amazed by how quickly and how simply, like you get used to it. It becomes routine. It becomes boring. Now it's like, it's almost like putting on deodorant or fix my beard. It's like something I do once a week just for very routine. And I never would have thought that. And so when I talk to guys that are having health issues or OT, especially if they're on the gel and it's not working for them, which some guys it does work for, but it's just not very common. Most guys seem like they really need injections. When I talk to guys about it, I tell them like it does get routine, it does get boring. Like you wouldn't think injecting yourself once a week would just become a normal thing, but it really does. But so after 6 months, I got on the injections, and I had a couple other issues that I had to deal with. Like I had found out I had sleep apnea, so I had to get on a CPAP machine. Found out my thyroid was low, and that took like 2 or 3 other doctors. Like I moved in the meantime. Went to an endocrinologist for a while. Went to a urologist at one point, and 2 different urologists because I moved one and then I came up here, and none of them really were very familiar with stuff. They were just kind of like, okay, you're on injections, but we don't really know what else to tell you. And I finally looked out and found a physician where I've moved to in Southern Indiana that like he's familiar with the thyroid issues with CPAP, sleep apnea with testosterone, and so I'm good now. I'm in a much better place. I was in the gym before everything closed for the quarantine, but I'm doing pretty good with like home workouts now and stuff. So I'm active and actually feel alive. Actually, the mental fog is gone, but it really just took going to several doctors and just kind of figuring out like what I needed. And I wish that I'd found a lot of the TRT groups and men's hormone groups on Facebook earlier than I did, because I had to research and find all this stuff out myself. I remember going to my doctor and saying, so what about an AI? What about HCG? Like all these different things that can supplement and help with testosterone. At one point, after I got on the injections, my estrogen shot up way too high, and so I was feeling the side effects from that. And I went to the doctor, that first doctor I had, and he was like, I have no clue about any of this. So the next doctor had more information about it, and he prescribed something kind of help lower that and kind of get that steady. But it was very frustrating because, like I said, it took, let me think, three physicians, 1 endocrinologist, and 2 urologists for me to get into a good place. And
you said now you're treating with a primary care physician?
Yeah, 1 primary care. I've looked out. Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah. Because that eliminated like 3 different specialists I was going to for different things. Just amazing. Yeah. Worked out very well. And I know most guys don't have access to that. And that's a frustration for them, but it's worth, like, even if you have to make appointments with like every doctor in your town or contact the office first and say, hey, is this physician familiar with men's hormonal health needs? Like, it's worth it. It really is.
Yeah. You were lucky that your doctor was humble enough to tell you initially that he didn't know much about it. I mean, a lot of doctors have this sense of pride and they'll just jump in there and screw you up.
I was very surprised by that and appreciate that. That first meeting where I was talking about, like, he had me do a urine test because he wanted to check different things. He'd done blood tests and checked to make sure there was no disease or cancer. And he finally just said, like, I don't have a clue what's wrong with you. And I was the one that had to say, well, what about testosterone? And he goes, like, the look on his face was like, oh, now I got to deal with this. But I remember him saying, let's check it. It's worth checking. But I didn't think of that, and I'm just not familiar with that. Plus, where I was living at the time, like it's a much older population. I was probably the youngest person I ever saw in the doctor's office there. So I think he was used to dealing with people like diabetes and just other like heart health issues. And so when I come in with hormone issues, he was just like, oh, I don't know. So yeah.
When I first went to my primary care physician and basically described the same symptoms that you're describing, I had social anxiety and I couldn't get anything done. I had to take a nap every day when I got home from work. Same thing, I could load the dishwasher today and empty it tomorrow, but I couldn't seem to fit the 2 together in the same evening. Told my doctor all of that. And he literally said, look at your beard. You don't have low T because you've got that beard. And I didn't know any better at the time. Yeah, I didn't know. So I just said, okay, sure, I guess not. But he ended up, I don't think he actually tested me. I think I had to go into like one of the cattle call type low T center-esque places where they just kind of pull you in, drop your pants, and inject you once a week.
Yeah, and like I said, the first place that gave me an injection was one of those kind of just like come in once a week kind of deals. They actually wrote me a prescription because it was about 2.5 hours away from where I was living at the time. It was expensive. I did about 6 months of paying for support through that private clinic, and after that, I was like, I can't afford this. This isn't worth it. So that's when I went on to the second doctor, and about the time I moved too. So And I know guys that their primary physician won't give them injections because they're only used to the gel, or maybe a guy wants to start out on the gel and the physician only does injections, and like it's worth arguing with them or just switching doctors. And that can be tough if you had the same doctor your whole adult life or several years, but it's worth switching doctors to find the right healthcare you need. It really is.
Sure. Yeah. What about you, Roger? You've got a pretty interesting story. Tell us how you got started.
Sure, Brandon.
Surprised you.
I'm going to start back in the beginning, and that's probably back in 2008 when I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. Had a total thyroidectomy, and then between 2008 and 2012, I'm going to shorten that period of time. I put on 75 pounds. I went from 270 or 170 to 245, and it wasn't a pretty 245. And then I got lucky. I had two brothers get sick the same day for the same thing and went in the same hospital, congestive heart failure, something that occurs with bad behavior or a sedentary lifestyle. And I decided I was going to do something about it. I was lucky that year in that we had multiple snowstorms that put 24 inches of snow on my driveway. And the only way to clear my driveway at the time was to shovel it. And I was the lucky shovelee. But I seen that my energy levels kept dropping along with my weight. My weight went back down to 175 pounds in 7 months. I started feeling better. And then, so I started doing more workouts in the gym, started with low volume stuff and eventually built up. I got to a point where I was telling people at work I was the healthiest looking sick person they ever saw. Because I still look pretty good. I looked pretty good back then once I dropped that 75 pounds. Then in the November, I think 2017, I had regular blood work done for my annual physical. Noticed that my testosterone, the free or total, was 472, I think it was, which isn't extremely low for somebody in their 60s. But I didn't like it. Nothing I could do. I was in normal range. 6 months later, I did another blood work and the testosterone had dropped down to 272. So I dropped 200 points in 6 months. And it seemed to be in a free fall, but I figured, what the hell? Along that same time, I'd been doing some modalities. I did a cryo chamber, minus 240 degrees for 3 minutes. I stayed in until my nipples froze and it was time to get out. I got out, but then that Friday I came down with a fever that spiked at 104.8 and stayed there for 6 days. Nothing I did. I took Motrin to try to cut the temperature down. It dropped it down to 102, but I couldn't get it below 102. Well, at the end of that, I noticed that when I was trying to, my temperature had normalized. I felt better. I went to reach into a cabinet with my left arm, and I couldn't get my left arm to go where I wanted it to go. So what it turned out was the temperature was a virus that had attacked the nerves in my shoulder, because I remember when I peaked at 104, I had pain across the back of my shoulders. And then all of a sudden it had damaged the nerves that feed the rotators, both horizontal and vertical, in my left shoulder. So I spent some time trying to figure out, what the hell can I do about this? I can't go through life with one arm. I've got two perfectly good arms. I just need to learn to make the one that's not working right work right. I picked up with a functional doc down the shore from me, who did a full up blood panel. I mean, every test that could be done, they did. Well, when I went in for the consult with her, and she said, you do know your testosterone is really low, don't you? And I said, well, yeah, last time I checked, it was 200. I was thinking that's getting to the abnormal range, even for somebody my age. And she said, no. Your total testosterone is 45. Your free testosterone is 0.9.
Wow.
Don't worry, we're going to fix that. Right? She never referred me to a TRT doctor or anything. I kept waiting for her to say, well, we're going to start supplementing with some testosterone, even a cream. Nothing. So finally I took the bull by the horns and I went looking for a local TRT doctor. I was lucky enough to find one that looked at my levels and said, oh, we got to do something now. So he put me on 200 milligrams of cypionate once a week. We rechecked it in 6 weeks. He reduced the dose of that a little bit and wanted me to start taking an AI. Well, I took 2 doses of the AI and every dose I felt worse and worse. So I said, you know, why do I have to take this? What is this AI doing for me? And he had me on a what was it? A full well, it was a full tablet, 25 milligrams or something like that. Anyway, I was taking the whole tablet. He said, well, next time I went to see him, I said, you know, it's not making me feel better. My estrogen had dropped to 0.3 at that, but when I first prescribed it to me, my estrogen was at 72. So I decided on my own I was going to quit taking the AI, and then just did a lot of research, looked on the TRT community, looked at a couple other Facebook pages that I know. One, they're definitely proponents against AIs.
I'm familiar.
Yep. I'm not going to mention names because I think you know who I'm talking about anyway.
Yeah, no, you can mention names. I don't have any issues with anybody. I'm not smart enough to know for sure if you should or shouldn't take it, you know.
Uh-huh.
I can tell you that from experience that you will feel just as bad when you crash your estradiol as you do when it, you know, I do whenever mine's too high.
I felt worse. I was a hot mess.
Yeah.
I'd go from placid and almost ready to slit my wrist to so mad that I would, you know, I'd jump off a cliff and take somebody with me.
Yeah.
So that was
yeah. So I try just not to be super polarizing with my opinions, you know, because it's anecdotal. I'm not a scientist, you know. I can say I know for certain that whenever I feel terrible, it's because my estradiol is too high. It's not prolactin that's doing it for me, because my prolactin can be within range. So, you know, I don't take an AI personally, but I would never say that no one should ever take it, period, end of story. I think that's
Oh yeah,
foolish.
I went through that phase when I was telling people, you know, just don't take them.
Yeah.
The bad things from low estrogen are much greater than too high estrogen. You may not feel good on higher estrogen, but you're not going to have cardiovascular issues with high estrogen. You are with low estrogen.
Sure.
So that's what my take was. And then I realized, you know what? That's stupid because everybody's different.
Yeah.
Everybody reacts differently, just like with diets and everything else. So anyway, I got with one TRT doctor when I told his nurse that I was no longer taking the AI, she insisted I start taking it. So I started looking someplace else for another doctor, and I found him on that other Facebook page, Dr. Jim Meehan. Can I mention his name?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
He's
a friend.
He's a great doctor, and he's more into optimization rather than just replacement. Yeah, it's good to replace your normal levels, but if I were replacing my normal levels at 68, I'd only be somewhere around between 350 and 450.
Yeah.
And I would much rather feel like a 20-year-old than a 80-year-old.
So you said a minute ago that you found the original doctor down the shore from you. What state are you in?
New Jersey.
Okay, and Meehan is in Oklahoma, right?
Meehan's Oklahoma. He does telemedicine.
Okay, I didn't know that he treated that vast of an area. Cool.
Yeah, he's licensed, I think, in about 16 states. Correct me if I'm wrong, Doc. But
yeah, I've heard really good things
New York,
about him.
New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut. I think he's always making trips up here. And he's following down in Tennessee and Texas and Oklahoma and that area, those areas.
I know that he's a proponent of some pretty crazy protocols. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Oh yeah, what I do with Jim is I do a total of about 180 milligrams of testosterone cypionate propionate 80-20 blend, but I do it every other day doses. I also do HCG twice a week, Monday and Friday, 250 international units, whatever that measures out to. No AIs. He said he would prescribe an AI if my estrogen, or if I started getting side effects of it. And so far I haven't gotten any side effects, and my estrogen's been as high as 75.
So you don't do the compounded cream?
I do a compounded cream. It's a cream that includes 25 milligrams of testosterone. Let's see, DHEA, pregnenolone, and vitamin D.
So does he have you do the cream mostly to get the DHEA, the preg, and the DHT benefits?
He,
You know?
he wants to, what he's doing with the cream is he's simulating the peaks and lows of
Okay.
a normal testosterone cycle.
Okay.
And it seems to work. I missed my dose today, I just realized, but you know, I'll get it tonight, and then I'll sleep until about 2 and then wake up in a hot sweat.
Very cool. Yeah, I've heard really good things about him. I like that guy.
Yeah, he's on his own protocol. So what he's designing, he gives to his patients. He doesn't give them anything he doesn't do himself.
Cool.
Which is always encouraging when you've got a doctor that's prescribing something that they're doing and it's working for them, you know. And he's willing to. I mean, I've learned so much with him and with belonging to TRT Nation and the other group that I have that I was thinking about starting my own counseling service.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said, how old are you?
I'm 68.
68. Yeah. You've got, I mean, you know, you are probably top 10 physiques in our 16,000 member group, and you're probably the oldest of the top, you know what I mean? I mean, it's phenomenal, the work that you've put in.
Well, and it's been difficult, but I'm finding ways to do everything I need to do.
Yeah. So Chris, unmute yourself. Chris is fairly new to the group. You've been in the group a couple of months, I think, but he is putting me through the ringer right now. He's a personal trainer. He does a lot of online training and fitness and stuff. So I'm working with him. You're on testosterone too, right?
Yeah, and I probably have a pretty unique story in the sense that I'm probably not the guy you would typically think would go on TRT or need to go on TRT. And I did it all by myself with a lot of trial and error, a lot of error in the beginning. So yeah, like you said, I'm a personal trainer. But even before I was a personal trainer, always really into health and fitness and sports. Never had an issue with my health. Never had an issue with my weight. Never had an issue putting on muscle, staying lean, very easy. Never had an issue with energy, anything like that. Became a trainer about 9-10 years ago. Everything was fine. I was a competitive power lifter, you know, plenty of strength, everything good. Right about the time I was getting to be 40, I was like 39, 40, right around that range. I started to notice like things being different as far as the way I felt. And I had pretty much all the normal, I guess, symptoms of low testosterone. I just didn't know it was low testosterone at the time. Just waking up every day, just wanted to do nothing but stay in bed. No sex drive at all. It was putting a strain on my relationship with, at the time, she was either my girlfriend or my fiance. She's now my wife, but it's putting a strain on our relationship, right? Because I just didn't even want to. Some days I'd feel good. Some days I'd be mad. Some days I'd be depressed, right? I had all these different like mood swings. And even throughout the day, I would notice these mood swings and getting really irritable at small little things would just get me so upset. So I knew something wasn't right, but here I was, you would look at me and you'd say, oh, this guy is really healthy, right? He's like 185 pounds. I'm 5'10", I'm about 185.
You got that deep voice and that beard going on too.
I got the beard. It's like your doctor said, I must be okay on the teeth. Right?
Exactly.
Okay, I got the beard. Right? It's on the outside. It's like, this guy looks really healthy, but I knew something was going on. I knew something was wrong. And coming from a fitness background and always being into fitness and into that, even though I never did steroids, it was always something that fascinated me. And it was something I had spent a lot of years researching steroids, obviously from more of a performance and aesthetic standpoint, not as a treatment, right? And even though I never went that route, it was always something in the back of my mind. And I knew other steroid users, and a guy I knew who I used to powerlift with, and he's a pro strongman. He's been doing steroids since he was 18. So I reached out to him finally, and I said, hey, you know, kind of thinking like something's up here. I might have low testosterone. This is what I'm experiencing. He's like, yeah, you should go get your levels tested. So I got my bloods drawn. I think I was at like 319 or something like that, which isn't extremely low, but it's, you know, definitely towards the lower end, especially for a 40-year-old guy who is in good shape. That's pretty low. And I knew, again, I had all the symptoms, so I knew something wasn't right. So unfortunately, even though he meant well, he just kind of like, I didn't really get any guidance. So I didn't have health insurance at the time. So I was just doing this all on my own through my friend. And he just basically said, okay, yeah, you should definitely do it. You'll feel a lot better. Here's a bottle of testosterone. Here's some needles. Here's a link. And you can learn how to inject. He just kind of gave me the steps, like, you know, put some alcohol on it, stick the needle in, put some more, right? And I was just trying to figure it out on my own. Unbeknownst to me, the first bottle I got was 300 milligrams per milliliter. And I was doing a CC. I was right. And so I got horrible. So at first, for like 2 or 3 weeks, I felt like Superman. I was like, this is amazing. Like, why didn't I do this before? Then I started getting really bad acne, and I've never had a problem with acne. Like, I get 1 or 2 pimples a year, even like through puberty. I never had an issue with it, but it was all over. It was so bad. It was summer, and I was wearing like long sleeve shirts because it was all up my arms and my shoulders and my chest. And then I started getting gynecomastia, and that's what really scared me, because I was like, okay, I'll feel really good if I have to deal with some acne, but I'm not going to feel really good if I have to have breasts, right? That trade-off's not worth it to me. So I freaked out, quit cold turkey. I think I was like maybe 5 or 6 weeks in. I don't remember. It was a few years ago. Quit cold turkey, got my hands on some letrozole. And if you don't know what that is, that's like probably one of the strongest AIs, if not the strongest AI there is. And I took that for 2 weeks, which made me feel even worse, because I completely crashed my estrogen. But it did at least reverse the gynecomastia a little bit. I still have a little lump on my left, under my left nipple, but it's very small. So it did help with that. Waited 2 more weeks before I did anything, because I was just wanted to like let my estrogen get back to normal and feel better. Went back on it, still had a lot of trial and error, still tried to figure out the dose. I mean, even to this day, I'm probably still always like trying to experiment a little bit, I guess, with dosages and how often I did it. But I definitely feel like I've got it more dialed in now. And without a doubt, once I got it dialed in, all those side effects were gone. You know, I felt normal again, felt good again. So
Excellent.
yeah.
How long have you been on? How long have you been on currently?
So I think this month actually is 4 years, because I'm pretty sure I started April, the age when I was 40, and I'm going to be 44 in June. So I think this is 4 years for me being on.
Man, you're another guy that just doesn't look his age. 44 years old. You look 28.
Wow. Well, thank you.
Whatever you and Roger are doing is what we should all be doing. So
I think it's just staying healthy, right?
Yeah. So if guys wanted you to kill them like you're going to kill me, where could they find you for training?
Well, the best way is my Facebook group. It's called Testosterone, Nutrition, and Fitness, because obviously now my focus is I want to help guys in my similar spot who it's not just enough, right? Exercise and diet isn't enough anymore. They're dealing with the symptoms of low testosterone. So I want to help them with that as well. So we talk about all that, trying to optimize all that. That's the name of my group. Or you can just follow me on Facebook, friend request me on Facebook, and just say, you saw me on here, Chris Mangano.
Ian, unmute yourself. So everyone's heard you talk about how big your penis is and whatnot on the podcast repeatedly, but take us back to, I guess, day one, and tell us why you started what you were going through.
Hey guys. Well, I guess it starts back about 5-6 years ago. When I've been friends with Brandon for maybe going on 10 years roughly. And Brandon, you started 6 years ago, roughly 7 maybe.
Yeah.
And I think we talk about it occasionally, and you were doing it, you were in your course of treatment maybe for about 5 years. And I really didn't pay any attention to it. and then I think, got married, and then, a little bit later on, this is probably beginning to middle of 2018, I started to feel like, something's wrong here. I can certainly relate to Chris, that irritability thing that became a big issue with me. Um, Not sleeping well, motivation was in the tank, libido in the tank, just things all around were not good. And I had several conversations with Brandon over that time period, and he's like, "Hey, I think I've always felt like you've had this," and it finally took those several conversations for me to realize maybe I should start to explore this a little bit more in depth. So made an appointment, got my blood work done. My blood work was in the low, my total testosterone was in the low 200s. And so then that provider that we both went to, we both still go to that office, but a different provider now. He put me on 200 milligrams a week, and it was going well for a while. And I was doing HCG, probably I think 250 twice a week, so 500 total. It was going well for a while, and then I got as high as like 1100 in 6 to 8 weeks. My follow up appointment. And like I said, it was going well for a while, but at that follow-up appointment, I was describing a few things, and he's like, "Well, it sounds like you might need your estradiol's high." And sure enough, it was upon labs after that visit. And so he put me on an AI as well. I was doing like half a tab per week, and then I would split that up even further per, conversations with Brandon about it. And
I am
it
not
was
a medical provider.
no, but I don't think splitting the microdose, splitting it up is
It's just a disclaimer. Do not follow my
yeah,
medical advice.
no. And all of a sudden I started having a lot of raginess and mood swings and things like that. I'd pop off easily at my wife. I don't like to raise my voice as much as I can at especially at her. Like I'm just not that kind of guy. Like I'm not an angry, I just don't have that temperament, I guess. And it started to show itself in that way. And then I started to get another relatable, Chris, was the monster acne, just shoulders, chest, back. Nothing would work. All the tricks in the book, the natural sort of solutions, nothing was really working. Called the doctor's office, explained that to him. And he's like, "Well, I don't want to change the dose or anything," which is kind of what I wanted to do, lower the dose, or, to try to bring it down and subside some of those symptoms. He wanted to put me on an antibiotic, and I don't recall which one it is right now, but it did nothing for me. That first, whatever it was, 10-20 day course of that antibiotic did nothing for the acne, didn't bring it down. And then he wanted to try the next antibiotic, and still didn't want to touch the dose, and wanted to keep me at 200 milligrams a week. And I honestly, maybe it was a mistake for me to do this, but I just quit cold turkey, because I was like, I'm tired of all the acne. I'm tired of having, kind of the ragey mood swingish kind of things. It wasn't worth it for me to keep going, feeling this way, looking this way, having to do all this extra acne, care, skin care and things like that. So I just hit the eject button. I was still good for a little while. I think my levels started, tapering off, as they will. But then it returned. I mean, everything came back. All the classic symptoms came back. And in this time, my wife and I decided that we'd like to try to have a kid. And this was about a year ago. after I quit, but before starting up with another provider again. We had tried this, so that's kind of hard. That's something that's hard to do when libido and things like the erectile dysfunction. You can't really make that happen without getting these things right. So as of October of this past year, I'm with another new provider. She does specialize in hormone therapy. She wanted to start me out, and her approach is a little more conservative. So I will admit I like that. At the same time, my patience, I don't have the best patience in the world. So that's a challenge for me. She's kind of coming at it from a slower ramp it up. So I started with HCG.
She's probably watching you right now.
Oh, you think so?
Maybe,
well, she's great. I have no complaints about her, but it's a personal problem for me to have the patience to see this through.
Rachel hates you.
Hi, Rachel. We, of course, we're still trying. So she started me on HCG monotherapy to keep the boys happy. Your balls will thank you. Recent Manscaped promotion that. However, whatever. I think it was something around, I want to say, what was it? Like started out small, like 1,000 units a week. And then we bumped it up to 3,000 units a week. And we've kind of just looking at the blood work. We've added a little bit of testosterone back in. So at this point I'm on 80 milligrams a week of testosterone and 3,000 of HCG. Again, ramping up slowly. I don't know how I feel that it's going. It's from 1 week to the next. It's inconsistent in feeling kind of that lift that it gives you, that everybody here knows what that feels like. Me personally, I would like to probably keep increasing the testosterone side of things and decreasing the HCG, despite, we are trying to stay fertile and trying to get pregnant. That hasn't happened yet, but unfortunately.
Are you still doing 3,000 units of HCG with the testosterone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have a visit here in April, so which will likely be telemedicine, but
yeah, I didn't see her in the office. I was in there yesterday doing blood work and I didn't see her. Kevin was there, but I didn't see Rachel.
Yeah. So last time I was in, I think I was in the my total was in the high 400s. So it's going up. It's just not optimal. And I certainly don't feel optimal. I've been there for a brief period and I know how awesome it is. But also knowing that there's the side effects that kind of scared me off the first time. So I'm learning. It's still learning a lot from the guys in the group, picking up things as I go. Yeah, it's been good. There's a lot of good guys in the group. Good things to say.
Cool. So I don't think it's really a secret. I like to focus mostly on the new guy, the beginner level, because I think there are other really good groups out there that provide like a really deep dive into the scientific side of things. So, we're kind of like TRT 101. So if there was one thing that any of y'all would recommend to somebody, a piece of advice or just something to avoid or something that you experienced that you could help them not experience in your journey, what do you think it would be? Just like the top number one thing.
Don't be afraid to ask questions about it. I know I've talked to a lot of buddies that think they might have low T and they're afraid to talk to their doctor about it. There's that whole masculine machismo, like, oh, I don't want my testosterone levels to be low. Well, none of us want to experience that, but it's worth looking into. I know for me, I had such a mental fog and such a lack of energy that it took a couple of years really to finally go to the doctor and say like, hey, like I need to get this checked, need to figure out what's going on. But it's worth doing it. It really is. It's scary. it's intimidating, but it's worth asking questions. And then when you start on it, a lot of guys think that, oh, hey, this is going to be a quick fix. I get a gel or I get an injection and I'm going to be good to go. And I think Roger and Ian, both of your stories really emphasize that there's no one size fits all. Some of us need an AI, some don't. Some need HCG, some don't. Some need 200 milligram, some need 80. Like there's no one size fits all with it. And so, like, have the courage to be vulnerable with it, to talk to your doctor, talk to your friends, talk to family, and also like research it. Give yourself time to get on the right protocol and give yourself the patience with that. So, and I know that's not easy for a lot of guys.
That's true.
Yeah, I think this is Roger. There's one thing I forgot to mention, that is that in all my investigation on why mine dropped, along with the fact that I had my thyroid removed and broke one of the two HPT axes, the hypothalamus, pituitary, and thyroid axis, there's two parts that are common to both of them, the hypothalamus, pituitary, testes, and then the same two for the thyroid. So along with the TBI, I think that's what broke me and eventually drove my testosterone down. At that said, I think the best thing a man can do is stay aware of themselves. In other words, you know what your energy levels are, what they have been. If you haven't done a lot of heavy training and you're still exhausted at the end of the day, you have an annual physical coming up, have your doctor do all the tests. It may cost you a little bit out of pocket, but it's certainly well worth the hassle to get that done and pay a little bit more in the beginning than it is to go through all the catch up and try to figure out why things are happening the way they're happening.
Sure. Anybody else?
Yeah, I would say like a couple. Number one, if you even think, if you're having any symptoms that you think might be low testosterone, definitely get it checked out, because now that I got things dialed in, I would never go back. It's just an amazing thing once you get it relatively dialed in. But I'd also say a big thing to me is start with a lower dose and gradually increase. Don't do what I did and start super high and try to come back down, because it's very difficult. And like Ian said, you're going to probably deal with some sides, and get advice from people like the people in the group, in the TRT group, the TRT community. Get advice from people who have been there already and have made the mistakes or have the experience. Don't just jump right in and try to wing it like I did.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that I think takes more dialing in, more time spent dialing in than your doctor's going to be able to provide. Unfortunately, when you see your doctor, the first time, and then maybe in 6 weeks, and then maybe 3 months later, you really need more support than that, for the most part. So that's why I like to fall back on the Facebook group, just because we're there, people are in there 24/7, and we've got guys like, Chris and Ian and Roger and Joel that really know their stuff, that can help. Ian, what about you? You got a tip for our listeners?
Mine kind of, it wraps up what Joel and Roger both said. One, advocate for yourself. I'm preaching to myself here, but it's the most important thing. I didn't do it, and I've learned a lesson from that. Don't be afraid to advocate for yourself, and let down your guard a little bit. Just be humble. Talk, I think like Joel said, like you're sitting in a room with a male doctor perhaps, and you're saying, yeah, I'm not able to get an erection or whatever, like things like that. I'm not having good blood flow or whatever it might be. That's incredibly hard to do, but you're not going to get the help you need unless you're able to just let that down, and then let your guard down like that, and just be humble and say, hey, I'm struggling. And echoing what Roger said, just listening and being aware of your body. I think, and back to Joel, you said brain fog. That was the catalyst, I guess, for me to get to start down the road of exploring TRT. That's one of the scariest things I've ever, like, seasons of life I've been through, is having brain fog, waking up and just your memory and your focus. You felt like I'm getting older. mentally I'm getting older than I should be. And like I'm 35 and I was 34, 33 at the time. And I'm like, I should not be having this. This is kind of my body saying I need help. Something's definitely wrong. That's one of the scary. You think you're losing your mind. I mean, it's not
like I
fun.
said, I thought I was dying. I thought I had cancer.
Right.
Once I finally got the gumption up to go talk to my doctor about it, I was like I think I'm dying. And I guess he thought I was being hyperbolic. But once we got my levels back, he's like, "Oh, this is why you feel like crap." Like, yeah. So, but it does. It takes some vulnerability to just be honest with yourself and say like, "Oh, I'm not feeling well. Like this is a pattern." And it's easy for us to kind of put things on the back burner, especially when you have that mental fog going on from the low T and low energy. And I mean, I should have started years ago. I probably should have started, maybe in my early 30s. And I tend to attribute the whole thing to the use of ibuprofen for my back injury. But like the more I look at things, the more it probably wasn't dangerously low, but I probably had low T maybe into my 20s too. Like it's something I really should have looked into a long time ago. So it's where I tell everybody, get your levels checked. If you feel 100%, get your levels checked just to make sure, just to see.
Yeah, it's always good to have a good baseline.
Yeah. I've got two pieces of advice. One, you do not have to use a 21 gauge needle to inject yourself. I don't know what you're using, Joel, but you do not have to stick yourself with the whale harpoon. You can use I use an insulin syringe for my injections. And two, a little deeper than that, my big thing is mental health. And when I started, I was a nervous wreck. I was anxious. I had social anxiety and just situational anxiety. I couldn't get stuff done. And I had this physical fatigue and stuff like that too. But I've got this sweatshirt here. I don't know if you can see it. It's a zombie, which was me. And he's injecting himself and he's transitioning into a father playing with his child. So that's kind of like my mantra is, that's what TRT has done for me is I never took anxiety medication necessarily, but because I was too nervous to mention it to my doctor, I definitely should have been on something. But I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go to social events. My wife's a social butterfly and she would drag me to work functions and Christmas dinners, and I couldn't talk to anybody. And now, after TRT, I can stare at my camera lens and do a podcast for thousands of listeners, and it doesn't faze me. So that's been the biggest change in my life. So even if you don't have any physical symptoms and you've just got the depression or anxiety, there are tons of guys in the group. And again, I'm not a doctor, but there are tons of guys in the group that have completely discontinued SSRIs and other depression medications after starting TRT. And I think that doctors are too quick to prescribe these medications. SSRIs, by the way, will destroy your testosterone levels, but I think they're too quick to pass out these pills when we could just be essentially supplementing with a natural hormone.
And the other thing, SSRIs are so much more difficult to get off than they are to get on. Too.
Right.
You have to taper off them.
Yeah. So yeah, just mental health. If you're anxious or depressed, then have your testosterone levels checked. You got anything else before we get out of here? Cool. Well, I really appreciate y'all jumping on. I think this was fun, especially in a time like this where I haven't seen a human face over the age of 5 today. So it's nice to see y'all. We'll have to do it again. In fact,
thank you.
I plan on doing this probably another time in the next couple of days. So y'all jump on with me.
So I'll send you a picture of my face every day from now on.
I need to see it moving, Roger.
Oh, I can make it a movie.
All right, guys. Y'all have a good night.
Thanks, guys. It was a pleasure.
Bye.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed it.